Hey everyone, it's Alex Haney here. I am enjoying a delicious home-cooked meal out in the Ganaraska Wilderness. In this video, I'm going to show you how I prepare and dehydrate my meals for eating in the backcountry. Hey guys, it's Alex Haney here in my tiny kitchen in the city, and I'm about to whip up a big batch of chili to dehydrate and take camping with me. So I just thought I would take you guys along on the entire process of what I do to cook, dehydrate, and then prepare my meals out in the bush. So like I said, I'm about to make some chili. I'm making a vegetarian chili, but you could just as easily add meat. Here's all my ingredients all ready to go. I'm a huge fan of making things like chili or other one-pot meals. I make a ton of soups for the backcountry. Those are my preference because they really require no preparation in the field. You just have to rehydrate them and eat them and they're all ready to go. So basically your first step is just going to be to prepare your meal as you would usually do, and what I really like doing is to just make a huge batch of a meal and then I'll eat part of it for dinner and then dehydrate the rest. Okay, so you're pretty much going to make the recipe as you usually would, except there's one little thing that's going to help you a bit later when you're dehydrating, which is you want to cut the vegetables much smaller and finer than you usually would, especially when you're making things like stews. There's this stew that I make, and they usually tell you to make big chunks of stuff for those, and they just don't dehydrate very well, and then everything else will be done, but those big chunks won't be. Okay, so our chili is all done now, and what we're going to do is just take it and dehydrate it now. So what I use is this dehydrator here. If you don't have a dehydrator, what I used to do before I had a dehydrator is just put it in the oven and put it on the lowest temperature. And it's not as efficient and it takes longer. You can't do as much stuff at once, but it does work, so you can definitely get started doing that. If you are using a dehydrator, you're going to have these sort of trays, and if you're doing like a soup or chili like I am, you're going to need this kind of attachment. It's like pure plastic bottom for the trays. So basically it's going to look like this. So basically what you're going to do is just scoop your chili or soup or whatever into the tray and spread it out. Don't make it too thick or anything like that. And if you have a soup that's really watery, you can strain out some of the liquid. What I always do when I make a soup is make it thicker than I normally would, or let it reduce down until a lot of the liquid is gone. If it's like a soup that asks for broth and you don't want to waste all of that broth, then what you can do is just cook it with water, or part broth, part water. And then what I've done before is brought those bouillon cubes out into the backcountry, so that when I'm rehydrating and I want it to be kind of brothy, then I'll just add one of those little bouillon cubes. So yeah, you're just gonna keep adding layers here and fill up your dehydrator until it's full. If you're using the oven, then you just use a cookie sheet, and you can do like 2 layers in your oven. Okay, so I've got my 4th layer all done here, and now I'm just going to throw the lid onto my dehydrator. You want to make sure it's on the right setting. So for veggies and fruit and stuff like that, it's a lower temperature than for meat. But if you're using your oven, then it's just going to be pretty much as low as you can go. Mine I put on 150 degrees Celsius. So once that's set, you can go ahead and plug in your dehydrator, turn it on, and you're going to leave that for quite a long time. I'd say this is going to take at least 8 hours. So if you want, you can check in every couple hours to see how it's doing, but don't be too impatient because it takes a while. Okay guys, so it is 12 hours later. I left the chili dehydrating overnight, and let's take a look at what it looks like. As you can see, it has shrunk up quite a bit, and the way that you can tell it's done, you're gonna want to wash your hands and just sift through it and feel for any squishy bits. Everything should feel really hard and brittle. Nothing, yeah, like I said, nothing squishy. I thought this was done, but then realized that some of the peppers weren't completely dehydrated, so I had to leave it on for an extra hour or two. So once you know it's dried, what I like to do with it is I get these little Ziploc freezer bags and just label it with what it is and the date that I made it, and then you're just going to put it in your freezer. Okay, so here is the end result. I've got 2 sort of medium freezer bags full of the chili. You're just going to throw that in the freezer until you're ready to go on your trip. And in light of my previous video, I thought it would be suitable to bring my favorite apron. Yes, Walter White. Tonight I'm just having a dehydrated winter stew that I made. Basically, what we're gonna do is first we're gonna boil some water in our cook kit, and then we're gonna put it in an insulated type of cozy. What I used to do before I found out about making these with Reflectix is I just brought a little thermos, which is a method that I learned from one of my friends, but it's really not good for backpacking because you're carrying extra stuff. For canoe trip, it's fine. I learned how to make this cozy from Shug. I'll link that video right here actually, so you can go and see how to make this. Get your stove going. Whatever stove you want to use is fine. Like that. Okay. Put the windscreen on, and then we will throw some water in our cooking pot. And again, it's kind of guesswork, but that's the good thing about soups and stews, like I said. So we'll just wait for that to boil. Alright, so we got that boiling now. What we're gonna do is take it off and throw it in the pot cozy. Give it a stir, throw the lid back on there, cover it up, and now you're going to leave it like that for about 15 minutes, I'd say. Alright, so it's about 15 minutes later, and let's take a look at our meal. As you can see, it is nice and hydrated in there. I added some olive oil because, like I said, I like to add stuff to my meals. It just adds a bit more flavor and calories. If you guys aren't able to do this method, then another option that I sometimes do is I will just cook it over my stove. But before throwing it on your stove, what I would do is just soak it for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, even an hour if you have the time. Then just cook it over your stove or a campfire and try to simmer it. If your stove has that, that definitely helps. If you're putting it on the fire, just put it out of the direct flame. These cozies, if you don't want to make one, they do sell them at places like MEC or REI, I believe. Another option, if you're going on a canoe trip or weight isn't that much of an issue for you, again, you can use like a thermos. Basically, the more slowly you can rehydrate, the more successfully it will rehydrate. If you try to, just blast it over high heat in 5 minutes, then it's gonna be hard and disgusting. I hope you guys really liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. See you guys later.